The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Day one, NHL Free Agency Frenzy 2024. It's officially in the books. It's almost midnight Eastern here where I am in Toronto, so it's almost officially in the books. But I think the signings are done for day one, and it's safe for me to make my list of the top 5 best signings and top 5 worst signings. This video or pod you're listening or watching to is the best, as you know by the title, and look out or go click on the one that features the worst 5 signings of day one. Let's get into it. We have to start with the belle of the ball at number 5, Steven Stamkos. This was the get of free agency day. I didn't personally think up until Friday when it looked real that Steven Stamkos would be available. And once it became reality that Julien Brisebois and Steven Stamkos' agent and Steven Stamkos himself couldn't figure out a deal and that he would go to free agency, I did not have Nashville at the top of my list. I thought there was a possibility that Steven Stamkos could go to Detroit. They were heavy on my list. I thought he could go to Boston. I did not see that. I thought even Montreal. I thought Montreal was on the table too. I did not have Nashville at the top of that list. And lo and behold, Barry Trotz was able to pull off the, I don't want to say miracle, but he was able to get Steven Stamkos, and he did it through a contract that is $8 million per year for 4 seasons, which will lead Steven Stamkos into his years 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38. So he'll be pretty old by the end of it. But this deal isn't a great deal because he's going to be 38 on Nashville and maybe declining and be making $8 million. No, this deal is great because right now, currently, as the Nashville Predators are formed, they need scoring. And who cares about the later years of any contract that was signed today? That's kind of my mentality going into this whole thing. It's who cares about the end of the years? You're paying for the production now because we don't know how the future is going to unfold with these teams. So it needs to be a win now mentality with these signings. In Nashville, they went out and they did it all day long, getting Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos and everything else Barry Trotz has done. If you want to throw on the UC Saros extension on top of that for 8 years, the Brady Shea deal, which is fantastic. Carrier even, Scott Wedgwood as your backup, as you're going to trade the young goalie who doesn't really want to be there anymore. It's a great day from Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators. And on top of that, you get the best player available. And they need scoring. Steven Stamkos put up 40 goals last season during his age 34 season. Like nobody, I don't think anybody expected him to keep up that production. But Steven Stamkos is now out looking for revenge on the league and on the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was betrayed by his franchise that he only knew the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they didn't want to give him the deal that he thought he was worth. And now he gets to go to Nashville and prove everybody wrong. Having a motivated Steven Stamkos is a recipe for success. There's no doubt in my mind that he's always motivated, but extra motivated Steven Stamkos, I think on number 5 on my list has to be Nashville signing Steven Stamkos. Number 4, I think this one might surprise some people, but Jake DeBruss. Jake DeBruss is my number 4 best signing of day one of free agency because Patrick Allvin is building a tough team in Vancouver. They went for it this year, getting Lindholm, getting Zadorov at the trade deadline earlier in this season. And they knew what kind of team they wanted to build. It's a tough team to play against in the playoffs. And the Dakota Joshua re-signing for $3 million, I believe it is 3.25 Dakota Joshua. He is somebody who embodies what I think it means right now to be a Vancouver Canuck, where he's tough to play against. He can get points when you need him to. He can play anywhere in your lineup. And with Jake DeBruss, you get more of that. So I think this signing, it's on my list because it's a perfect fit for the team. Jake DeBrusk, coming from Boston, knowing how he played as a Boston Bruin, feels like the correct player for the culture and the team that Rick Tocchet wants to build in Vancouver. And whether he gets to play on the wing of JT Miller or Elias Pettersson, I think he's going to elevate both of those players' games, and they're going to elevate his game. It feels like a perfect complementary piece for the top six of Vancouver. And that leads me to my number 3 best signing, who I think is the perfect complementary piece for what the New Jersey Devils need, and that's Brett Pesce. Brett Pesce is exactly the missing piece. That's how like I look at these free agent signings. I'm like, okay, your team from last year, how did you improve on it? How did you get better? Did you fill that puzzle piece where all season long you needed it? And when Dougie Hamilton went out for the New Jersey Devils, they were lost, along with a couple other injuries and not getting any type of goaltending. The key thing was fixing the goaltending and fixing the defense. And they started with the goaltending by trading for Jacob Markstrom. But then this Brett Pesce piece today, I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. New Jersey's going to be good again. Like they're going to be the 23 or 22, 23 New Jersey Devils again because they have a stable piece on defense. And it wasn't just Pesce. I know it's about which signings are the top 5, so I'm kind of trying to isolate each individuals that were signed here. But getting Pesce and then also getting on top of that Brendan Dillon and Stefan Nason and Colton White, it seems like New Jersey's finally back to taking steps in the right direction. And I've already mentioned getting Jacob Markstrom. So perfect complementary piece to what they are building in New Jersey. I think Brett Pesce is exactly what they're missing. They were relatively soft on the back end and in their forward group, and now they've added guys that are going to be tougher to play against. And adding guys is one thing, but having guys stick around is another. And number 2 on my list of best signings is a re-signing, a guy sticking around in Toronto, Max Domi. Because as a Leafs fan, I feel like only Leafs fans will get this. If you're a fan of other team, you might get this too. But it's been so hard to find players who want to stick around in Toronto for other reasons than like I'm a superstar and I want to play in Toronto. I'm talking about Zach Hyman wanted to stick around, but it was a little too money. We can relitigate Zach Hyman all day long, but it was a little too much to pay for at the time, and nobody wanted to pay that price. And Michael Bunting was just priced out of the market because he played too well. Having Max Domi re-sign in Toronto, it's not quite Zach Hyman sticking around for a reasonable price. It's not quite Michael Bunting taking a giant discount, but it feels along the same levels. And it's a sigh of relief that we get this Toronto kid who was born to literally be a Maple Leaf, who wants to be a Maple Leaf at his core so badly, and he's on the team, and we know what role he's going to play, and he can play that role, and he's priced to play that role. We haven't priced Max Domi too high or too low. It's correct for the middle 6 position that Max Domi will play. And I think it's a wonderful signing. 10 out of 10, no notes from me on this one. So that's number 2 on my list of best signings from day 1 of NHL Free Agency. And number 1, continuing the trend of re-signing, it all kind of flowed, I think, the list. They kind of flowed into the different signings. They all kind of flowed into each other. And a re-signing leads into another re-signing, which is, I don't even know if you can compare it to any other signing of the day. Juraj Slafkovsky. It's the best signing of the day. It is a 8-year deal for $7.6 million per year. I didn't even. Let me run down actually the other signings. I don't even think I said them each time we went through. They would have flashed on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But let me just read off the signings. Steven Stamkos, I did. Jake DeBruss signings. I should have done this. $5.5 million for 7 years. Max Domi signing $3.75 for 4 years. Brett Pesce's signing was, hold on, $5.5 million for 6 years. And Juraj Slafkovsky, $7.6 million for 8 years. And why this is the best signing of the day is because Juraj Slafkovsky, the number 1 overall pick in 2022, is a year out from this deal even kicking in. All next season, he'll still be playing on his ELC. And you're going to have 21-year-old Juraj Slafkovsky, who is slowly maturing into a fantastic NHL player and will one day be, based on how things are going, a superstar in this league, one of the best players in this league. And to have this guy, Yuri Slavkovsky, under contract for $7.6 million in not next year, not the year after, not the year after that, but I'm talking about in years 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 32, 33, all of those late years, to have like 26-year-old, your number one winger next to whoever's going to be centering him, whether it's Nick Suzuki, who's still in that role, who knows? Yuri Slavkovsky is going to be a star on this Montreal Canadiens team when they are ready to contend, and he's going to be making peanuts in comparison to his output 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 years from now. And that is fantastic GMing. I can't compliment Kent Hughes enough for what a tidy piece of work that is. That is how you lock up a young player. And now it's just on Slavkovsky to reach that potential. And then that deal is going to be a crazy discount many moons from now. I mentioned this on the video that we made for the SDPN channel. Myself, Steve Dangle, and Adam Wild made a video for the SDPN channel. It reminds me of Nathan McKinnon when he was on his deal for $6.2 million up until a season ago, because that's how long that deal ran to. And it was because they signed him so early. They signed him so young, and they got to lock him up before he reached his potential. And this reminds me of that. So it's my number one signing from day one of NHL free agency. As I mentioned, go check out the video of the worst signings of the day. That's going to be out very shortly. If it is not out already, it should be out already by the time you're watching or listening to this. So go listen to that one if you haven't listened to it already. And if you're listening to this one second, that's it. That is it for me tonight. I'll see you again shortly. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I appreciate you. Could have been anywhere in the world that chose to be listening or doing this right now. So take care from Toronto.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.